Hey guys, this is Jeff with voiceapps.com. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the Voice Apps platform and show you some of the really neat features that we have. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth in any one subject in this video, but be sure to check out our deep dives on various topics. You can find that on our YouTube channel or on our voiceapps.com website. So let's get started. When you first log in to Voice Apps, you're taken to your projects page, and at the top are your projects, and down at the bottom are sample projects that we've created for you. You can view those sample projects, you can see how things are done and get ideas from them, and you can even use them as a starting point for your own projects. All you have to do is click on this little ellipsis here and then create copy. And that'll create a copy for yourself that you can edit and make changes to. If you want to create a new project, you can just click on Create New Project, this button up here at the top right, and that'll open up the Create Project window. And here you can give your new project a name, an invocation name, choose a category for it, choose your target languages or locales. This is where your skill or your project is going to be published. And this is a very neat feature. You can choose an icon here, and we've provided millions of icons that you can choose from, and you can just search for various keywords in here, and it'll bring up hundreds of different icons that are that you can use in your projects. If you don't find one in here that you like, or you have one, a brand icon that you want to use, you can just drag and drop it right here in this little box, or just click here and you can select a file and upload it from your computer. So a really neat feature. Again, there's tons and tons of images in there that you can use for your projects. And then you can give it a description and click create, and that's all there is to it. You've created a new project. So once you've got your project created, you can do a few things here. You can delete it, you can edit it, and then you can duplicate it. If you have a project that is very similar to another project that you're going to create, you can just come in here and duplicate an existing project and use that as a starting point for your new project. So a lot of you have skills that are just repeated with maybe different themes. This is a great feature that you can use there. When you're ready to actually edit your project, you just click on it. Just click on the card here, and that'll take you to your project details page. And in here, you can see there's two main areas here. On the left here is your project all laid out visually. And you can zoom in and zoom out just using your mouse wheel or your touchpad, or pinch and zoom if you're on a mobile device. And you can move it around as well. So you can kind of zoom into that portion of the project that you're working on. And of course you can drag things around and change the shape of the layout. So a really neat feature. You can kind of work on a small part of a larger project. This is a fairly decent sized project that you can see here, and you can just kind of zoom to the level that's comfortable for you. And then whatever zoom level and wherever you've got it located, Voice Apps is just going to save that for you. So the next time you come into the project, it's going to put it right back in that same place for you. So over here, so that's the kind of the visual side of the project. Over here on the right is actually the configuration of each of the intents. So each of these blocks is an intent being something that the user intended by what they said. So if they say open, ice cream shop, or open my skill, they're intending to start the skill, and the welcome block would handle that. If they say goodbye or cancel, the goodbye intent would handle that. If they say help or I need help, the help intent might handle that. And then you would create your own intents. We have some here. Next question, answer, and again, you would define what the user says to activate those intents. Each of these, as I click right now the welcome intent is selected, and as I click on the different intents, you'll see that over on the right over here, the information is changing to reflect whichever intent that I have selected. So what you can do is you can go over here and edit the details of that intent, and everything you do saves automatically. So as you're making changes or typing new data, there's no need to click a save button. The system saves it for you automatically as you make those changes. So just real quick, I'm going to go through the tabs here, show you a couple of functions that are in there that are pretty neat. There's a whole bunch of functionality, and we keep adding new features and functions all the time. But let's just go through it real quick so you can get an idea of what's available. And then again, as I said, come back and go through some of those deep dive videos that we'll have on each individual function within the intent editor here. So you have 4 tabs: the activation tab, the data tab, the responses tab, and then the next actions tab. Activation is how your skill, or how your intent rather, is activated. So for example, the welcome intent gets activated or gets triggered by when the skill is launched. So that makes sense. And you can only have one of those. So when the skill gets launched, the welcome block's always going to activate first. And then you have the ability to choose other things for, let's say help, for example. The intent can be triggered by what the user says. And in that case, you might want to have the user say, whenever they say help, or whenever they say I need help, or help me, those kinds of things, you can set it up so that the help block would get activated, the help intent would get activated when the user says those things. We also have by audio player next and by audio player previous. So that allows you, if you have a skill that's playing music or a podcast or some kind of streaming audio, you can capture the next and previous either button presses, or if they use their voice, you can capture that and have an intent manage that and give them an appropriate response. Okay, so you can also, let's go back to the welcome block. So also in here, you can you have publishing information on the welcome block, and this is only on the welcome block. It's one time per project, and the publishing information is just that. It's information that you would need to actually publish your skill out. So it's the invocation name, it's the sample phrases, the description, and keywords. And one thing to note is that if you look up here in the top left, is that we have what a locale. So this happens to be English US. Now I only have English US in this particular skill, but if I had, in fact, let's go change that real quick. I'll show you how to change that, and then we can come back and look at it. But if I go back to projects, and I go to my beer trivia game here, and I click edit, I can go in here, and right now I only have US English, but let's add UK as well. Okay, and we'll hit update, and then we'll go back to our editor. So now I have English US and English UK selected here, or available to me. English US is selected. And so as I change between these two, I can change right here, and now I'm looking at the UK version. By default, voice apps will copy any changes you make in the US version to all of the other English locales. So that makes it very easy to come in, create your skill, create your project, enter in all of the US version, all the English version in the US locale, and the voice apps will copy it for you automatically as you do that to all of the other English-speaking locales. And that makes it really easy to, if you're going to publish a skill, you know, most people do, they publish their skill to all of the English-speaking locations immediately. And so that makes it really easy to do that. You don't have to go in and, you know, either copy it and paste it or any of those kinds of things. It does it automatically for you. And what's great, for example, let's go back to the US version, and you'll see that my invocation name is Beer Trivia. Well, maybe in the UK, that doesn't make as much sense, and you know, we want to change it to Beer Trivia UK, just as an example. And I just overwrote the US version in the UK. So if I switch back to the US, it's still Beer Trivia. But if I switch to the UK, it's Beer Trivia UK, and everything else is the same. So all of my other data and responses and everything else is the same. So you can just override one or two elements for a particular English-speaking locale, but by default, everything you change in the US version will automatically be copied to the other locales. Okay, so enough on that. We'll go into a deep dive video on that later. Okay, some other things here. Let's move on to the data tab. And let's go to, in this case, let's go to New Game. So we have several things on the Data tab. Data is where I can set variables. I can configure state within my skill. State is the ability to actually store information and have it saved from session to session or invocation to invocation. So as your user's using your skill, you can store information and then retrieve it later in that state. So in this case, this is a trivia game. One of the things we've done is we've set up the max questions. These are variables. Actually, we'll have a variables video that details this, goes into a lot of detail on variables and shows you exactly how to use these. But for now, you can see that we're setting up some variables here that are specific to this game. We're setting the player score and the opponent score to 0. We're setting the question number to 0 and the max questions to 7. So if I wanted more questions in this particular game, I just change max questions to 8 or 9, and it'd be very easy to do that. Okay, so another thing we have here in this particular intent is get random value. And what this is doing here is actually getting a random value from a list of values and assigning it to a variable that we can use later. So this particular random value function is getting a random name. It's actually generating our opponent name, but it's getting a random name from a whole list of names, and we've put a whole bunch of them in here. And don't worry, you don't have to type these one by one. Anywhere you see this little truck icon, you can just click on this truck icon and you can paste in a list of values, and it'll automatically pull them in for you and create these individual entries for you. So you don't have to type these one by one into this little editor. We've got a bulk upload for almost all of the functions, and you'll see that wherever you see that little truck icon, just remember that's the bulk upload. And so then once Voice Apps has chosen one of these names randomly or one of these entries randomly, it's going to assign it to this particular variable, in this case opponent name. We have another one here that's got a list of states, US states, and we're doing the same thing. So it's going to pick a random value and assign it to the opponent location variable, which we'll use later on in this particular skill to tell you who your opponent is. So great. So let's skip forward to the next question, and I'll show you another function that we have. So lookup value is another function that we have. So get random, as I said, just gets a random value from a long list of values and assigns it to a variable. What lookup value does is actually takes a value, and you'll see this, there's two columns here. There's a left column and a right column. What lookup value does is takes the variable that you pass in, finds that matching variable in the left side, and then takes the right side value and assigns it to a new variable. So it's a lookup. So it's just like if you had an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets, and you look down in column A and you find the matching record, but then you get the value from column B. That's all we're doing here, but super powerful. And in this case, we're using it to assign a point value to each level in our trivia game. So when I'm on question 1, that's worth 10 points. When I'm on question 2, that's worth 20 points, and so on. And I can just change these values right here to make it appropriate to whatever game or whatever skill I'm creating. So that's another one. So lookup value is a really cool feature that we can use. And we have a couple other get random values here as well. I'm going to go ahead and go to responses. And let's see, I think maybe going to, yeah, this is a good one here. Okay, so skipping to the answer intent gives me some good responses. So response groups is really just a container that contains a group of responses. And a response currently can be either playing a short audio file or giving a voice response and actually saying something. So play short audio, in this particular demo, we have 3 of them in here, 3 audio files. These are just URLs to an audio file on the internet. And what voice apps will do is pick a random one for you. So if you can put one in here and it'll always play that one. If you put multiple entries in here, it'll pick a random one and play it for you. And you could have 50 of them in here. So let's say it's a game-winning sound. It's when the player wins the game or gets a question right. You can have a whole bunch of different winning game sounds, and each time it'll play a different one for you, and it'll make your skill more dynamic and kind of be unique each time the user plays it. And then in this case, we also have an Alexa response. So this is what Alexa will say. So first it's going to play one of these random audio files, and then it's going to play, in this case, "You're right," and then play question.explanation, which is giving an explanation of what the answer to this particular question was. And these are grouped together. And they're grouped together for a reason. And in this case, we have a block down here that says when. And in this case, we can say when answer is equal to question.answers. And what this is saying is when the user's answer was equal to the correct answer, we want to say, play this sound and say "you're right." We have another response group here, which is going to play a random wrong sound and then say the correct answer and then give you the correct answer. So this is when you're wrong. And again, this is when the answer, which happens to be the user's answer, is not equal to the correct answer. And you can choose, these different conditions here depending on what your needs are. So we have equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So you can do so much with this. And this whole response group will get executed if that particular condition is correct. And it'll pick the first valid response group. So if you have multiple response groups that have valid conditions, it'll pick the first one and play that for you. So pretty neat feature there. Okay, so let's move on to next actions. And this is after the response has been made. So after either you've played a sound or you've given a response or both, then what happens? What's the next thing that the skill is going to do? And a lot of times you're just going to, you're going to wait on a user's response. So you're going to wait for the user. And you're just going to wait for them to say something. So that's a lot of times while your skill is going on, you're just going to wait for the user. But you can do other things. And in this case, I'm actually going to execute another intent. So when the new game starts, I want to immediately go ahead and ask a question. And so this actually execute another intent will not return yet and will continue on and execute the next question block, and it'll combine the output of those two intents into one output. So if the new game is got one response and the next question intent has another response, those will be put together and all of that will be output at one time. And then the intent to execute in this case is next question. So next action can be also ending the session. So if it were goodbye, for example, goodbye, when it's done, we want to end the session. The skill's over. We want to stop. And then we also have the ability to play a long audio stream. This is really, really neat. So this is where you can actually play a podcast, any file that's out there on the internet that you can stream. MP3 files, any kind of audio file that you want to play. And this is a long audio stream. The ones in the responses section here that you can play are short audio files. They're limited to a total of 90 seconds. But these next actions, the long audio files, they're unlimited. They can play as long as you need to. The user can actually interact with it and say next and previous, and pause and resume and those kinds of things. And all of that's built in. So, if you choose a next action of play a long audio stream, you have lots of controls there that you can do, and it's all built in. You don't have to think about it, but it's all there for you. Going on down, contextual help, again, another neat feature. Contextual help allows you to, rather than having one help block that, whenever a user says help, here's our help block here, whenever a user says help, give them some generic help message. The contextual help allows you to specify for each individual intent, if you want to, a help response that's specific to that particular intent. So if you happen to be asking them for their name, then, or in this case, where you're playing from, then you can have, if they say help or I don't know or they don't answer, you can say, something very specific like, please tell me where you're playing from. Because you're in a very specific intent, you're asking them something very specific. Giving them the rules or some generic help message doesn't make a lot of sense in that case. So contextual help allows you to answer a very specific answer to their help question. And just like most of the blocks, you can enter multiple entries and it'll pick one randomly, again, to make the skill dynamic. And there's our little truck icon that you can use to bulk upload those. All right, another neat feature here is invalid responses. So if the user gives an invalid response, you can give a more friendly response to them rather than, again, just asking the same question again or something like that. So if they give a invalid response, not something that you were expecting, you can say something like, I didn't get that, please tell me where you're from. And again, this is very specific to this particular intent rather than a generic response that you might give if somebody says the wrong thing. And then if they don't respond at all, this is when they don't answer. And, Alexa will wait 7 seconds and then they'll reprompt you. So this is the reprompt. And again, this is a reprompt that's specific to this particular intent. So we're asking them where they're located or where they're from. And if you don't respond, again, rather than repeating the original question, which sounds more like a robot, you can actually ask them a different way. So you can say, please tell me where you're located, or you can say your state or city, where are you located, or please tell me where you're playing from. You can mix it up, give them maybe more information to help them there. So that's pretty much it for the different things that you can do in intents. Again, we have some deep dive videos that you can watch and go into each of these individual functions and get a lot more information about how to use them and some of the neat things you can do with them. But I wanted to give you a quick overview of what's available and what you can do with it. So some other things I want to show you while I'm in here is the ability to test this skill. So we have built our skill now, we've configured all of our intents, and now we need to test it. So you can just click on this test button up here, and we have a whole test application built right into the browser here. So you don't have to go deploy it to your Alexa device or bring up, the developers, tools to edit this thing. We have it all built in for you right here. And so a neat trick is just to click in this box here and just hit enter, and that'll launch the skill. You can also use your voice just by clicking this icon over here on the right. But if you just click in here and hit your enter or return key, it'll launch the skill, and I'll do that for you.
Welcome to the beer trivia game. What's your first name?
So there you can see that the skill opened, it played our welcome audio, and gave us our welcome prompt. So again, you can go through and you can interact with this right here in the browser. If you wanted to change something and you wanted to test it, so let's go back over here. What's great about this is that, and we'll switch back to the US, but what's great about this is, here you are right here. Welcome to the beer trivia game. And, what is your first name? And let's change it a little bit. I want to make just a minor change just so that we can see it. And I can just say, tell me your first name. And then again, right here, without doing anything else, I can just hit enter again to open it, and the skill will start again. And we can see that that text will change pretty quickly.
Welcome to the beer trivia game. Tell me your first name.
So there we go. So tell me your first name. So I can go in and I can edit any of the things in this skill and immediately test it and hear it and hear how it sounds. So if I need to put longer breaks in, or I need to change the wording, or use some advanced features like SSML to some markup language to actually change the intonation and the speed at which Alexa speaks, I can do all of that and then test it right here. And again, the editor or the tester plays your audio files. It plays and plays obviously your voice output for you. What's great is that you can even use the share button and enable your skill for sharing. So if I click the share button, I can enable my skill for sharing, provide people with this URL. I can just click copy URL and it'll copy it for me. And then I can send that off in an email to my friends or my coworkers, and they can bring up the test window, just the test window. They can't bring up the editor, but they'll just bring up the test window, and they'll be able to test out your skill for you. And then they can give you feedback, and you can come in and tweak things. So really neat feature, ability to share the skill to your friends and coworkers. And then once you're done and you've tested it and you're super happy with it, then you can publish it. Great feature. You just click on this button, and it'll deploy it to your Amazon developer account. If you don't have one, it only takes a couple minutes to create. And then you link it to Voice Apps, and Voice Apps will publish it for you automatically. And then every time you click that button, it'll just publish it out for you, any new changes that you've made. So you can actually test on your own device. And when you're ready, you can just hit publish for certification, and you can publish your skill to Amazon and get it certified and put on the Alexa skill store. So really neat feature. We manage most of the process for you. We make it really easy, and again, we're adding new features all the time. So thank you. I know this was a little bit longer. There's a lot to cover in here. I just wanted to kind of give an overview so that those of you who are new, or those of you who are already using our system but maybe didn't realize we had some of these features, I just wanted to give you a quick overview. If you guys have any questions or any additional features that you'd like to see, drop us a line at support@voiceapps.com, and we'll be happy to help. Or you can click the little button down here and actually chat with us in real time. So great. Thank you guys, and we'll see you at voiceapps.com. Bye-bye.